Hi, I'm Em and this is Books and Bath Bombs. Hello there! It has been a while since I edited, uploaded, or even filmed a video. I haven't had any activity on this channel whatsoever since Booktubeathon because I've been super duper busy. After the Booktubeathon was the week of NerdCon, which is Scandinavia's biggest convention slash festival for nerd culture, manga, anime, all of that stuff. So I was there for 5 days, and after that I got the keys to my apartment because I'm finally moving out of my parents' house due to me beginning university at the end of this month. So lots of stuff happening, but now I finally had time to film some stuff, so I'm gonna film some videos and upload these, and I'm also gonna work on getting my Booktubeathon vlog up and some other videos that I have pre-filmed. I have so much pre-filmed stuff that I haven't edited yet, oh my god. Anyway, this video is my July reading wrap-up, so I'm gonna talk about all of the things that I read in July, and I read a lot of stuff in July. I read 12 things. I say 12 books, but 2 of the books are books that I started earlier and finished in July, but still 10 books without those 2 is still a huge deal for me because my usual reading number is like between 4 and 6 books, so this is still a huge deal and I really enjoyed most of the things I read. So this video might be a bit boring because there's going to be a lot of 4 and 5 star ratings, but you know, I had a good reading month and it's awesome, and I'm finally on track with my reading goal for the year. I'm 5 books ahead instead of 2 books behind, and it feels awesome. The reason for me reading so much this month was because of course, the Booktubeathon. And I will talk about the Booktubeathon book, but I've been planning to talk more about them in my Booktubeathon wrap-up. So for now I'm just gonna like give you my rating and some basic thoughts, and then once my Booktubeathon wrap-up is up, I will talk more about these books in there. So look out for that if you want to know more about any of these 7 books that I read for the Booktubeathon. But yeah, enough rambling, it is time to get started on the books because this is gonna be a heck of a long video. This is gonna be done as per usual in rating order, so lowest rated to highest rated. Okay, so first up is a book that I gave 2.53-ish, not really sure, stars, and that book is Du bara by Anna Alund. This is a Swedish 2016 debut LGBTQ novel. I don't read a lot of Swedish young adult fiction. I am usually not interested in Swedish young adult fiction, but my local librarian slash friend me recommended this book to me, and this premise just sounded so interesting, but I was a bit disappointed. Okay, so the premise for this book is that it's about these 2 siblings, John and Caroline. I think John is 16 and Caroline is 18, and they fall in love with the same guy. So I thought this was going to be a full-fledged love triangle, and I was actually looking forward to that. As most young adult readers, I am a bit tired of the love triangle trope. I thought that this would be a fun and new, refreshing way of seeing the love triangle trope, but the love triangle was barely there. Like, it was a thing in the beginning, and then it just kind of dissolved, and the rest of the book was just about, like, the character who ended up with the love interests, and the rest of the book was basically about the main character and the love interest and the sibling on the side a bit. So it was pretty boring actually. I mean, I loved parts of it. I really liked the main character and the love interest together. They were super cute and it was just a super nice read, and I loved the fact that the LGBTQ aspect wasn't a big deal. It was just 2 characters falling in love during a summer break. And that was awesome, but that was not what I was expecting, so I didn't get what I expected to get from this. And not much happened. Like, they fell in love, it was cute, but that's it really. So I only gave this 2.5/3 stars. There was some drama, and I was in it for the drama, but there wasn't enough drama. I wanted more drama, okay? It was disappointing because there was too little drama. Alright, so the next book is the first of my 7 Booktubeathon reads, because yes, I read 7 books for the Booktubeathon. Spoiler! And that is The Haters by Jessie Andrews. I won't say too much about it, because I'm gonna talk more in depth about it later, but I was disappointed in this. I did have a bit of a high expectation just because of Me and Erland Dying Girl. I really wanted to like this book, but it got too weird. It was cool in the beginning, but it got too weird, and I didn't really feel any attachment to these characters or anything. The plot was pretty weird. I really liked the road trip element and stuff, but it was just not for me. I do really like Jessie Andrews, just like with Me and Early and Dying Girl. I laughed out loud a couple of times. But this was really nothing special at all, and I'd been looking forward to it so much, so I was very disappointed. Then we have another booktubeathon book, and that is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I gave this one a 3.5/4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed the main story, but apparently there is a short story included in this, but I thought that the short story was part of the actual story, so I was so confused while I was reading it, like, what does this have to do with the main plot? I didn't understand a thing, and that really influenced my reading experience. Now that I know that that was just a small short story, I can appreciate it a bit more, but at the time I was really let down by the ending, or well, the ending. I don't read a lot of classics, but I did enjoy this. The language was a bit hard to get into despite it being in Swedish, but it was definitely worth it. It was a very unique story, and I definitely wish it was a bit longer, that we got to follow Dr. Jekyll and the narrator, I don't remember his name, but that we got to follow them a bit longer and see some more of it. But it was very clever, and I can see why a lot of people like it. Next up is yet another booktubeathon book, and that is Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. Just like with Gone Girl, it was very unique and very creepy, but it was very slow paced. It might be due to the fact that I had decided to read 57 pages every day rather than read large chunks at one go. So, you know, I didn't enjoy it as much as Gone Girl, but I did like it, and I am definitely excited to read her 3rd book. This was very clever, a bit disappointing, but in the end very satisfying. Okay, so this is the last booktubeathon book before we move on to some other stuff, and that one is My Life Next Door by Huntley Fitzpatrick. I liked this book. It was nothing special, but it went places that I thought it would not go. I did not know very much about it, so I was pleasantly surprised about what was in here. I loved some of the topics that it dealt with, and it was very cute, very fast-paced. I really enjoyed it. 4 out of 5 stars. Okay, now we are taking a break from the booktubeathon books, where we can talk some more about the books and not just rush through it. So the next book that I read, I gave 4 out of 5 stars to, and this is another Swedish book, and that is Introvert, Den tysta revolutionen, aka Introvert, The Silent Revolution by Linus Jonkman. So this is not only a Swedish book, it's also a non-fiction book, and I never read books in Swedish and I never read non-fiction, so this is a weird book for me to pick, but not really, because my boyfriend loves it and he wanted me to read it, and I really liked it. So Linus Jonkman is very much an introvert, and he wrote this book basically to educate people on what being an introvert means and what it is and why introverts are good and how extroverts can act to like make introverts more comfortable, I guess. I really enjoy this book. Linus Jonkman has a very distinct voice, and his voice is very funny, and it's very interesting to read from his perspective. He had so many clever things to say, and since my boyfriend is an introvert, I felt like it made me understand him more. I'm not an introvert. I am not an extrovert either. I'm divergent. No, but really, I'm an ambivert. I don't know how you say that in English because I've only ever said it in Swedish, but that's what I am. So I related to a lot of the things that he said in this book, and it was really interesting and actually made me question whether I was ambi or introvert. But there is a quiz at the end, and my score was like literally in the middle, so I am very much ambivert. Anyway, it was such a great read. I have no idea if this has been translated into English, but I hope it has, and if not, somebody get to it, because this is such a great and fun and educational read, and I loved it, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Alright, so now we're gonna move on to the 5-star ratings, and there are a lot of them. So yeah, if you watched my wrap-up for last month, you might remember me mentioning The Queen of the Tearling by Erica Johansson, which I read mostly in June, but I finished it on July 1st, so I thought that I would move it to this month's wrap-up, because technically I finished it in July. But I talked a bit about it in my June wrap-up too. So this is not really a dystopian, it's kind of a fantasy slash dystopian because it takes place in the far future of the Earth where like new kingdoms have been formed. I'm not really sure what happened to the world that we live in, but I think they will explore that more in the sequel. At least that's what I've heard from people who have read the sequel. And however, this is the story of Kelsey, whose mother was the queen, but she wasn't a very good queen, so she got killed, and her like little daughter was sent away to get raised far away from the capital so she would be safe. And now that she is 19 years old, she is gonna return back and take her throne back from her uncle, who is currently running the kingdom and not doing a very good job at it either. I love this book! I did not expect to like it so much. In fact, I was not even interested in buying it until we were gonna read this in one of my book clubs, and I'm so happy that we did because it was so good. I love Kelsey as main character. She is so interesting and I look forward to seeing her development so much. And I love that there was barely no romance in this. There were some romantic feelings going on, but not too much, and it wasn't a main focus or anything, and that was so refreshing to see. I mean, I love me some romance, but every once in a while it's nice to leave it out. And I love the side characters. Lazarus is my bae. I love him so much, and just all of her knights and the people surrounding her are just so interesting. And the villain is pretty interesting too. She reminds me of like Cersei and the Red Woman from Game of Thrones. Like if you put those two together, that's the villain in this story. And honestly, I wanted to just pick up the sequel ASAP as soon as I finished this, and I did buy it just like a week after finishing this. But I decided to wait a bit because the third and final book in the series comes out later this year. So I'm gonna read The Invasion of the Tierling maybe in September to prepare for the final book. Great interesting story with a lot of political intrigue, great main character, great side characters, great plot, just great everything, 5 out of 5 stars. If you haven't read this, read it now. Okay, so looking back, I probably shouldn't be rating this next book 5 stars, but I really enjoyed reading it, so I don't care. Anyway, that book is The Winter's Curse by Marie Rutkowski. I feel like I'm the only person who pronounces this name even remotely right on the first try. But anyway, this is also a dystopian slash fantasy, or really it's a fantasy without fantasy in it. I don't know how that works really, but this takes place in a fictional world. In a fictional kingdom, and there's a lot of political intrigue. There are these two like societies, and one of them used to rule, but then the other one invaded, and now they rule and have that first race as slaves. And the main character is the daughter of not a politician, but like the governor in the race that invaded the other race. And she buys a slave on the market, and they start interacting and things develop, and also some things are stirring. There's some rebel stuff going on, and there's a lot of things going on. And this book took turns that I did not expect to see in this first volume. I thought that things would happen later on in the sequel. I did not expect this to go where it went, so it really surprised me, and I think that is what gave it a 5-star rating for me, the fact that it surprised me so much. I really enjoyed reading about Kestrel and the male lead character, whose name I don't want to spoil because it's not revealed in the beginning. Also, it was so fast-paced, like even when nothing was going on, I felt like it was so fast-paced, and I love reading fast-paced stuff. So I picked up The Winter's Crime, and I look forward to reading it. And also, this cover. I love the covers with pretty dresses, and I just like this. Alright, so the next 5-star read I have is a book that I started a long time ago, I think for the Cramathon 2015, so last summer. And that is The Demigod Diaries by Rick Riordan. So this is a collection of short stories, quizzes, and stuff set in Rick Riordan's Greek and Roman mythology universe. It follows characters from the Percy Jackson and the Olympian series, and some characters from the Heroes of Olympus series. And basically what I've been doing is that I've been picking up some of the short stories here and there, and I read the last one on my way to NARCon. So this is when I truly finished this book. And you know, I really enjoy these stories. I really liked reading about Luke, I really like reading about Leo, and there is a story that is written by Rick Riordan's son, and I did not expect to like that one as much as I did. It was really good. So, you know, it was Rick Riordan, it was my favorite fictional universe, so naturally I had to auto give it 5 out of 5. There's not really much more to say about it, but I do really enjoy these small short stories. I have another volume of those, The Demigod Files, and I really like them. They're short and quick and fun, so if you like the Percy Jackson books, you should totally pick them up. Okay, so we are at the end stretch now. 3 books left. The first one of which is Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda. Yet another book-2-a-thon read. They are coming back now. All of these that are left are gonna be book-2-a-thon reads, so I'm gonna try to speed through them a bit. So this is an LGBTQ story and it is super cute. I read it in a day. I loved it. It was so relatable, and I'm gonna talk more about the plot and why I personally related to it in that other wrap-up that I mentioned like a bunch of times already in this video. But you know, really cute LGBTQ, 5 out of 5 stars. Alright, so the second to last book that I read in July is De-Archived by Victoria Schwab. This book has been sitting on my shelves for flipping ever, and I've been a bit hesitant to pick it up actually, because I have read Victoria's V.E. Schwab books, not A Gathering of Shadows, but I've read A Darker Shade of Magic and Vicious, and I love them. They are some of my favorites, especially Vicious. So I was a bit hesitant to pick this up because this is Victoria Schwab's book under her name, Victoria Schwab. So this is her YA series, and I was scared that it was gonna be too different from her other stuff. But I loved it. I loved it, loved it, loved it. It was so good. It was definitely different from her V.E. Schwab books, but it was so good. The story is so interesting. The characters are so lovely, and they definitely have flaws, especially the main character. She definitely has some flaws, but she's still really interesting to read about. She feels so real, and the setting is just magical and wonderful, and I loved it so much. In fact, I loved it so much that I spent like 40 minutes on the phone talking about it with my boyfriend. Just me talking about this book and talking about Victoria Schwab because I loved it so much. It was probably my favorite out of all of these. It was just so unique. Such a unique setting, such a great story. I look forward to reading the sequel so much. Okay, we are at the last book that I'm gonna talk about today, and that book is The Martian by Andy Weir. This book was so slow in the beginning especially, and I knew that because I started reading it last year and I didn't get very far because it was slow and boring. But once you get through that first rough section, if you've read this book, you know about where I'm talking about. It gets a lot easier to read and a lot more interesting. By the end of this, I had so many feels, and I watched the movie and I had even more feels. And my Goodreads review of this is just a mess. Basically, this book is so slow paced, but it is so worth it. It's so good, so interesting, and I loved it. 5 out of 5 stars. We made it to the end. Those were all of the books that I have read in July. Oh my gosh. I feel like I said basically the same thing about all of these books, which maybe I did, but I love them all, so who gives a crap? I don't. Since I don't really feel like making a separate TBR video, I am just gonna talk about my reading plans for August here as I usually do, even though this month I do have a lot of books that I want to get to. Usually I only have like the one that I'm currently reading and maybe one more on my TBR, but now I know exactly what I want to read and I can't wait to get to them all, so I'm gonna show them to you now, and that's gonna be it. Okay, so since I'm moving out this month, the priority is to read the books that I have checked out from the library. The library has gotten some really interesting stuff lately, so I try not to check out too many books from the library, but these I had to get because I really want to read them, or some of them. I'm gonna talk about that later. But generally, I really want to read them, but I don't really want to buy them, and since my local library has them, I wanted to borrow them. But I want to give them back before I move out of town. So the first one is the one that I am currently reading. I started reading it today, and that is Salt to the Sea by Ruta Sepetys. So this book is my first ever historical fiction read. I know, I'm late to that very important party, but you know, better now than never, right? So Salt to the Sea is about these 4 youths during, or rather after or during, I'm not sure, I think it's after, because I think it's in 1945, so after, I think, the Second World War, in Europe, which is super refreshing because I don't read a lot of books set in Europe, which is weird because I'm from Europe. So even though I'm about 100 pages in, I don't know too much about this. But from what I've read so far, all of these 4 kids want to get on this boat to seek refugee from the war, or like from the Russian soldiers. One of them is like already on the boat trying to like supervise how many people get on it, and he's working there, and the other 3 are on their way there. I'm not really big on history, but I have heard that this has a very sad ending, and you know, I can only speculate. I have heard of this historical event, probably, and you know, I do feel like I know how this is gonna go, but maybe some of them will survive. I don't know. I hope they'll survive because I've started to care about them. So far it is pretty good, and I'm hoping to finish this weekend actually, so I can get on to something else. Alright, so my second book on my TBR for August is a book that I was not planning on reading at all, because I read the first book in this duology and I did not like it. I liked it a little bit, but not that much. I thought that if my local library got it, I might be interested to check it out, but if not, I didn't want to buy it because I didn't want to support it because I didn't like the first book. But also I've heard some people say that the sequel was a lot better, so that has made me intrigued. And then I just saw it at the library and knew that this was a sign I needed to get it, so I can read it for free, and if I don't like it, I haven't wasted my money, but if I do like it, I know that I liked it. So that book is The Rose and the Dagger by Renee Ahdieh. So I'm one of the bunch that did not like The Wrath and the Dawn at all. I enjoyed parts of it, but for the most part I was just disappointed as shit. So I am very hesitant about this. But you know, it's free and it's shiny, so hopefully I'm gonna read it and hopefully it will be pretty okay. Alright, so the last of the library bunch is volume 34 and 35 of Skip Beat. Recently I read the 3-in-1 edition of volumes, I think 31 through 33. Yeah, 31 through 33, and the next 3-in-1 volume comes out I think next year in January or something, so it's a really long time away, and these 2 are already out and at my library, and volume 36 came out recently as well, so I'm gonna read them and then I'm gonna buy them because I want more of the story, and it left off at a cliffhanger in volume 33, so I really want to know what happens next. So I'm gonna read these. I mean, these are gonna go by super quickly, and I always love reading Skip Beats, so I'm very excited to get to these. So for actual books that I own, these are mostly sequels to books that I read last month and felt like I needed to get my hands on the sequels ASAP. The first of which is The Winner's Crime by Marie Rutkaski. I already talked about The Winner's Curse, and you know, like I said, I loved it, so I want to read the sequel, and I have it right here, so hopefully that will happen this month. And then we finally have 2 books. So reading the Archived reminded me so much of why I love Victoria Schwab that I decided to pick up 2 of her books, This Savage Song, which is her latest release, and The Unbound, which is the sequel to the Archived, which I read last month and loved, like I said earlier. So I really want to get to at least one of these 2, probably The Unbound, because I don't think there will be a third one, so I might as well read the second one while the first one is fresh in my mind. This Savage Song got released like last month and has gotten a lot of hype and a lot of praise, and the premise just sounds so good. I've been anticipating it since its release. And I mean, I have a Gathering of Shadows sitting there on my TBR shelf, but I'm more interested in these 2 as of right now. And then hopefully in September I can read a Gathering of Shadows. I just want to read all of the V.E. Schwab things right now. But okay, that was me talking about too many books in one video. I hope that you liked it. I am very excited about reading again. I really feel like BookTubeathon sparked my reading interest and also my BookTube interest, because a lot of people have been subscribing to me since the BookTubeathon happened. I've gotten like 50 or 60 new subscribers. I'm very happy that you're here, so thank you. It makes me so happy to have you guys here. But yeah, that is going to be it for this video. So thank you for watching, and I will see you in my next one, probably tomorrow, because I'm probably gonna be uploading videos daily for a while to get things back on schedule. But yeah, that is it. So bye!